Welcome back to the lecture series in animal physiology. So today we are entering into the 10th week. So this week we will concentrate on cardiovascular system. So as the part 1 of it, we will talk about the anatomy of the heart and how the heart beats, how you can study heart without getting into any kind of confusion, because this is the organ which performs two distinct functions. On one hand, it pumps the blood. First of all, it collects the blood from all over the body. Then it pumps it to the lungs. In the lungs, it gets purified, and the purified blood comes back to the heart, and from there, it is pumped throughout the body. So it's a closed loop system. What we meant by closed loop? So say for example, let's just take some point, okay? See, in last few seconds I kind of pulled it all together in one shot. So say for example, we have 4 chambers. That's precisely heart has. In human heart, okay? There are systems who have different kind of anomalies, different kind of variations to that. We are not taking those into account. Those are part of comparative physiology, which we are not dealing here. So we'll take the standard human heart, which consists of 4 chambers, okay? So how you can draw 4 chambers? First of all, so the way it will do, I will give you some of the PowerPoint presentation, but that is not really important. Important is your imagination. If you are not given anything, then too you should be able to visualize the whole image, how the heart looks like. So imagine there are 4 boxes placed like this, okay? So for example, you do a crisscross, there are 4 chambers you could see. One here, underneath there are 2 chambers, right? So in your brain map, draw a box like this to start off with, something like this, okay? A simple box. You draw a box and then you split the box, you draw a line like this, okay? And you draw another line like this, fine? Now, again, look at me. This is what I was trying to tell you, right? You have 4 boxes. From one box, you made 4 boxes. Now, you face the box, right hand, left hand, right? Based on that, you give them a right side and a left side. Of course, you are facing the box. So if this is your right, this is my right hand. So automatically, if I am facing the box, this side will be the right, right? So let me put it there. So based on that, you split the whole thing into 2 sides, okay? Good. This one is right and this one is left, right? So now I have orientally put 2 sides, right and left. Next, what you do, you just like a building, ground floor, top floor. So if it is a 2-story building, so what I do, so I draw, split it like this, okay? So these are upper floor, these are the lower floors, or we can call them upper chamber and lower chambers. So you can put nomenclature to them, like this is right, this is right, this is left, this is left, this is right upper chamber, this is left upper chamber. U stands for upper chamber, U, and L stands for lower chamber, right lower chamber, left lower chamber. So now you have 4 chambers, okay? Oh, just before I forget, so this is our week 10, lecture 1. That is on cardiovascular physiology. And here we are talking about structure and function of heart. Fine. So we have a right upper chamber, left upper chamber, we have a right lower chamber, and we have a left lower chamber. So we have 4 chambers. Now, the way it works is, so we have 4 chambers. Now, out here, I am using blue for the blood which is being pumped out and which is coming back to the heart. Okay. So white is a closed loop system. So here, this blue color indicating the blood coming back to the heart from all over the body. It can come from upper part of the body, it can come from the lower part of the body, because your heart is sitting here, right, somewhere out here, precisely. So you have a big chunk of the body which is lower than the heart and upper. So this part is called the superior, which is above the heart, and this is called inferior, which is lower the heart. Fine. So here, if I put a nomenclature, so this is called inferior vessel, which is all collecting stuff from the lower part of the body, and this is called superior vessel. And based on that, there are names for it called superior vena cava, inferior vena cava. Okay. So from the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, you are receiving the impure blood. Fine. And mind it, I told you that this is a closed loop system. So it seems that from the superior, you are getting all the blood which is flowing to the blood into the brain and all other places. They are all getting accumulated and coming to the through the superior vena cava, coming to the right upper chamber. From here, out here, there is a small valve, which first of all the stuff gets accumulated here, and as sufficient pressure develops, the blood moves to right lower chambers. Okay. So at time t1, this is one event which is happening, okay, followed by, so I am not putting another time here for a different reason, I will put a different time later. There is a reason, because there is a left upper chamber, something is happening there too. So once I explain this, then I will put the time windows. So through a specific valve between the right upper and the right lower, the blood moves to the right lower chamber. From the right lower chamber, this impure blood, so this is rich in CO2, carbon dioxide, okay. This blood needs to get purified. So from here, again through the valves, this blood travels all the way to an organ called lungs. So this is plus CO2, right. In the lungs, what happens while you are inhaling and exhaling? While you are inhaling, you are taking with you a lot of oxygen, and while you are exhaling, means you are, this is exhale, you are throwing away the blood, throwing away the breath. That time this CO2 is being thrown away. We will come later into that, how the lungs is doing it. Okay. So now this oxygen which is coming out here, it mixes with the blood and make the blood rich in oxygen. So here we are mentioning it O2, and this oxygenated blood comes to the lower upper chamber. And still remember, I am not talking anything about the timing. There is a clock which is working here, and It will take me some time before I talk to you about the clock. There's a reason for it, because that's where comes the logic of the control mechanism of cardiovascular system. Now, from here, okay, so there is one more thing let me mention. This wall in a mature heart of human, there is no connectivity, unless otherwise there is some pathological reason. So, it seems from the right to the left side, in a mature human being, there are no connections. But there are exceptions, there are developmental changes, there are development issues which will come later. So, I am kind of darkening this line. Okay, now from the left upper chamber where the oxygenated blood has come, again through certain valves, this oxygenated blood moves, this is all rich in oxygen, moves to the lower chamber, left lower chamber. Okay. Now, at the left lower chamber, from the left lower chamber, blood is pumped out through a vessel called aorta to the rest of the body. It is one of the strongest vessels because out here the force or the pressure with which blood is pumped is extremely huge. Okay. So, this vessel aorta to have that much structural integrity that it does not burst out when with such a high force blood is being pumped out. Okay. The very high force blood is being pumped to the rest of the body. Okay. So, now this blood now travels all over at different organelles. It goes to the superior region, inferior region, and in that process at every place it goes, it gives away the CO2 to the different tissues. We will come when we will talk about the circulatory system as a part of this cardiovascular system. And while it is doing so, out here the blood vessels picks up the CO2 which is being given out by the different organelles or the cells present there. So, it is picking up the CO2 from all over the place. So, this is becoming now oxygenated blood which came becoming now rich in CO2, because it has now allowed the oxygen to be given to the tissue for its metabolism while picking up the carbon dioxide, and now this whole closed system. Similarly, I am not redrawing at the top because there is no space about it, something like this. Okay. Just imagine this, make a replica of it on the superior side. So, you see why it is a closed system. So, out here from the right upper chamber, the blood moves to the right lower chamber. From here the blood moves to the lungs where it throws away the carbon dioxide, picks up the oxygen. The oxygenated blood comes to the left upper chamber. From the left upper chamber it moves to the left lower chamber. From the left lower chamber it is being pumped all over the body and at different destinations, superior, inferior, whichever places it goes, it gives the oxygen to all those tissues and picks up the carbon dioxide or liberated by those tissues during the metabolism. Okay. And then again the carbon dioxide rich blood is brought back to the heart, again to the upper chamber, it moves to the lower chamber and again pumped to the lungs for purification. So, this whole process needs, so first of all point 1 to realize it is a closed loop system. Point 1, it's extremely important. Point 2, it's a closed loop system. Point 2, it is a system which relies on pumping, force and pressure. So, this system acts, it is like a pump. Then the system required specialized vessels. Why it needs a specialized vessel? One such example is aorta, superior vena cava. Second, why it needs specialized vessels? Because should not allows backflow of blood. How that is being maintained? Mind it, because this is a very closed loop system. If there is a backflow, we'll be in a big shit. Okay. So, how this backflow of blood is being completely prevented here? What are those structural details? What are those precise genius of nature which ensures that there is no backflow of blood? And there are. Once we'll talk about the geometry of the blood vessels, you will realize how nature has done it so precisely. But I haven't said the most important point yet. The most important point is when I wrote this word time t1, what does that mean? That means, now let us try to think it little like an event manager. So, you are all aware about people who manages events. Okay. So, there is an event, there will be a chief guest coming, and then there will be something and followed up function, and then a vote of thanks. Likewise, there is a function happening. So, there is a precise events which happens. So, whenever you study physiology, you have to understand there is an event. An event should be broken down with respect to time. So, if you see a card, so they will say at this time there will be the welcome of the chief guest, followed by this, there is a time. So, now think of this is an event, and there are at least 4 different events happening here, just itself on the heart. What are those? First event out here, look at it, blood arriving at the right upper chambers. So, before I get to the upper chambers, these upper chambers anatomically I will call atrium, and these lower chambers are called ventricles. These are anatomical names of it. So, left atrium, right atrium. Left atrium is the left upper chamber, right atrium is the right upper chamber, whereas ventricles, left ventricle which is the left lower chamber, right ventricle which is the right lower chamber. These are the technical terms which you needed to know, and there are names for these different valves, which I will leave it for your exercise, something called semilunar valves, and you should look forward to it. What are those valves are? So, and those valves are present at different points out here, one point here, another point here, another point here, point here. What are those valves and what are their names? So, one of them is definitely called semilunar valve, and I wanted to look through because there is an interesting part. In one side there are 3, the other side there are 2 out here. Just use the black. Which side has 3 and which side has 2? I want you guys to explore it. And in terms of the anatomy, which I haven't, so I explain it in terms of the box. So, in terms of the anatomy, I will come back to that picture, the box picture. So, anatomy of the heart is something like this. And this is precisely left and the right side, and So, if you consider this as that central line what you drew in the previous say, if this is your right, this is your left. So, then this is right atrium, this is right ventricle, this is left atrium, this is left ventricle, and precisely here you have the valves which are present here, here as well as here. Okay. This is where the valves are present, and out here superior and inferior vena cava, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava is bringing the impure blood, which is plus CO2 blood here, which is moved here. From here this is being carried forward to the lungs. And I am not introducing the lungs here, the geometry or the anatomy of the lungs, because that will make things confusing, whereas the plus oxygenated blood comes to the left atrium here, moves to the left ventricle, and from here is the aorta, which is carrying it all over the body, right. And this precisely what I was trying to draw is become so. And okay, let me okay. So, this is how the connection goes, and all those vessels which are carrying oxygenated blood are called arteries, and all those vessels which are carrying deoxygenated blood are called veins, except there is one artery which carries deoxygenated blood. Okay. That is the artery which from here, this is called an artery. This is the only one artery which is carrying this plus CO2 blood to the lungs. This artery is precisely the only and the only artery, and whereas there is only one vein which carries the oxygenated blood, that is the vein which is leaving the lungs. Okay. So, there is one artery which carries deoxygenated blood, and there is one vein which carries oxygenated blood. Other than that, the whole nomenclature is fairly constant with its function. Fine. So, we have introduced arteries, we have introduced veins, and in between there is something called capillaries, which is the real exchange zone, and we will talk about this geometry later, not at this stage, but just to give you a flair and give you an idea about how this looks like. So, these are the capillaries. Okay. So, this the capillary are the zones where all these exchanges are taking place. So, I will close in here, we will carry over from here the real concept of time. Thank you.